right? Number 18, we have x cubed minus 5x squared plus 2x minus 10 equal to 0. For what real values of x is the equation above true? Okay, so we're solving for x using this equation. And see here, we begin with a cubic term, x to the third, right? And then we have like 4 terms here. So this is a very strong signal, right? Telling us this might be factored by grouping, okay? Because we have 4 things here. We can put them into 2 separate groups, right? And then we can do factor by grouping here, right? So let's give it a try. Okay, so we begin with x to the third, and then we have 4 terms and it's equal to 0. It's very likely it's factor by grouping. Okay, so what we can do is we can put them into 2 groups. So the first group, we have x cubed minus 5x squared. That's our first group there. The second group will be 2x minus 10. We treat it as a group. Okay, so for our first group, we'll have to check the 2 terms. You have x cubed and then minus 5x squared. But to check what's a common factor that we can bring out. Right? We can factor out here. They both have x squared in common, right? So got these two, they both have x squared in common. So we can pull out a x squared in front. And then we pull out x squared here. What we have left is just x and then minus 5. Okay, if we x squared, we should have a x minus 5 left after we factor it out. And for our second group, we have 2x minus 10. Okay, so here we check the common factor. We can actually pull out a 2. Right, so we factor out 2. 2 is a common factor here. So pull out 2 in front, we should get x minus 5 in the parentheses, like that. Okay. See, after we pull out the common factor for each group, we have the same thing left inside here. The parentheses, right? Inside parentheses, you have x minus 5 for both. So that's a good sign, right? So that tells us we're on the right track. So whenever we do factor by grouping, we should have in the parentheses the same thing. Okay. So now if we have x minus 5 and x minus 5 from both groups, so that will add like a common factor. Okay, so that's a common factor that we can pull out of from both groups. Okay, so now we can actually factor out the x minus 5. Then what we have left us will be the remaining stuff, right? So we have a x squared plus 2. So we put them into another parentheses, and that will be the other factor. Okay, so we're pulling out x minus 5 in front, and then what are left, we put it in another parentheses. So that will be the factor form. We get x minus 5 times x squared plus 2 equal to 0. All right, so now we have this factored. To solve for x, we had to set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x, because we have these 2 factors, they multiply to be 0, right? If one of them equals 0, then this whole thing will equal 0. So this is the 0 product property. Okay, so to solve for x, we can set this equal to 0, say x minus 5 equal to 0. And solve for x, we can do plus 5 on both sides. We get x equal to 5. That is a solution there. And the other factor, we set it equal to 0. And you solve for x, we have to do minus 2 on both sides. We get x squared equal to negative 2. To solve for x, we have to take the square root on both sides. You see this, we have a problem, right? When you take the square root, we can't have square root of a negative number. So that won't work. Okay, that won't give us a real solution. Will just be imaginary. Okay, so this part we can just ignore it. It won't give us a real solution. So the only real value, right, the real solution that we have should be just 5, and that will be our final answer for this question.